get on the recording. All right, so we are now recording and we're going to go ahead and do introductions. My name is Amy Kaler and I am the coordinator for Star Academy. If you're new to Natomas Charter, coordinators are principals. And then with me today, I have the kindergarten team and Mrs. Donato, who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Francesca Donato. I'm the educational specialist at Star Academy. I've been with NCS for about 9 years now, and I've been teaching for over 20. I think my call to fame is that I am married to Mr. Vinny.
And then kindergarten, Ms. Strazo, do you want to start?
My name is Sarah Strazo. I'm a kindergarten teacher here at Star Academy. This will be my 7th year teaching and my 6th year with Star Academy.
I am Sarah Lack, and I'm also one of our 4 kindergarten teachers here at Star. And this will be my 3rd year teaching kindergarten here at Star.
Hi, I'm Sarah Phillips, another Sarah. I am another kindergarten teacher at Star. This is my 5th year teaching and my 2nd year in kindergarten.
Hi, I'm Shannon Grover. A little different. We've got the 3 Sarahs and the 1 Shannon. And this is my 2nd year teaching and my 2nd year in kindergarten, my 1st year at Star. So I'm really excited to be here.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into presentation mode and we'll go through our presentation and then at the end, once again, we'll go through questions. So this will take me just a second to get switched over. Oops.
You are presenting.
Okay. So as I said, we're going to go ahead and go through showing you what a day in kindergarten will look like in the distance learning model. And before I have kindergarten go into specifics, I'm just going to go over a few general information things, and then we will have them talk about what a day in kinder is going to look like. So this year, our theme is Brave Leaders, Superstar Learners. And sorry, I'm having to admit people at the same time. And with this, we feel like this theme really represents the year ahead in this dynamic time of COVID and distance, or balancing between distance learning and then if we get into the hybrid model. So during this time, our teachers are going to continue to use strong instructional practices. They will be basing instruction off of grade level standards for every subject area, but keeping in mind that they're trying new things and we're definitely going to be having the word flexibility being our #1 word this year as we navigate through figuring out what works really well, what needs to be adjusted somewhat, what's not working so well. So you'll continue to hear that word from all of us. And then we also understand that in this distance learning model, and even if we're in hybrid, we need to continue to build our community through new ideas. We're not able to all be in person in one area, so we're going to get creative, and I'll be talking about some of those different ways we'll be building community. And then we also are striving to provide a very stable environment for your students and for families because students thrive off of that stability. So going into the start of the school year and getting started, next week we will be welcoming you in by appointment for a Meet the Teacher and materials pickup with your individual class teacher. This will happen during the day between Wednesday, August the 12th, Thursday the 13th, and then Friday the 14th. Teachers will be reaching out to you to schedule these individual appointments to pick up your materials and get specific information for how to get started. And if you are not comfortable with coming in person for those individual meetings, you'll also have the opportunity to schedule a virtual appointment with your teacher. And then we would schedule a time for you to drive through our drop-off pickup area to get the materials that your child will need to get going for this school year. Additionally, during the first couple of weeks of school, we will be doing assessment. For kindergarten, it is going to include an iReady diagnostic in the area of reading and math, and we'll be giving you some more information on that in the coming few days. Additionally, kindergarten will also be doing some one-on-one assessments, which they'll be giving you more information on. Another element is quite a few families, after we had our last meeting for Star Academy probably like 2 weeks ago, a concern was definitely flexibility. We have a pretty rigid, straightforward schedule, but understanding that we have families that are navigating working from home. Some parents are working at their place of work, which might not be in the home. And then having multiple children. So we're trying to build in ways that we can be flexible while still meeting the expectations of what the state has for us through their guidelines and making sure your student is successful. So one thing that keeps coming up is around lunch. That's the one that I hear the most of. If you have a kindergartner and a fifth grader, they do not have lunch at the same time. What are you supposed to do? You have a couple different options. You could have your kids, if you're going to be home for lunch, you could have them take it at their own time. Otherwise, if you have to come pick up a lunch at school, you're going to want to pick one of those times. And then you would make up the assignment or learning that was missed at a later time that works for your family. So maybe later in the afternoon, if they missed a time that they were doing writing, for instance, they would go into Seesaw and you would still be able to have access to the assignment. And there would likely be a recording from the teacher of the instruction part that goes with that you could access for your child too. So we're building in those opportunities. We know that things are going to happen and that you're trying to find that balance. So we will have stuff built in where you can still access videos of the instruction and their assignments if you need to do something at a later time than when it was scheduled. If you're doing that though, just reach out to the teacher so they're aware of what's going on and they will work with you. The next part is usually within the first 2 weeks of school, we do a back to school night. This year, we're going to do a back to campus night. So we know that we're giving you a lot of information right now, especially around the distance learning model, because that's what we're going to start out in. So once we find out that we're switching over to the hybrid model, we will schedule a back to campus night where we will give you specific information about what it will look like and what you need to know to have your child be successful in that model. But we're going to need to see how things go with distance learning so we can make some modifications to our hybrid model to be as successful as possible when we switch over to that. The next thing is technology. All technology, so for kindergarten, you will be getting iPads if you have requested technology from the school. The iPads will be passed out to you during your individual appointment. That will be between August 12th and the 14th. So that way that you're ready to go on Monday the 17th. You'll have all your materials. Your child will have their technology and they'll be able to log into the class instruction for that day and moving forward. And then donations. Every year we always ask families, if possible, to donate $35. This is $30 going to the classroom teacher and $5 going to the art teacher to get supplies for the whole school year. We do know that this is a dynamic and challenging time for a lot of people, but if you are able to make that donation, you can make it to My School Bucks or you can write a check to Nave. The school, no matter what, whether you make a donation or not, we are going to provide all supplies to every student in the school. So to start off with, during your appointment for the Meet the Teacher appointment and to pick up your materials, your student will receive crayons, pencils, colored pencils, a pencil sharpener, and erasers to get them going. And once again, all that stuff will be picked up at your appointment. So that way on Monday the 17th, your child's ready to go. And we know that everybody will have equal access to what they need to get going. Before kindergarten goes into what a day in kindergarten will look like, we have come up with a model at Natomas Charter that is the Learn, Do, Connect model. And this model is really based off of what it would actually look like to be in a physical classroom, which we want to do the best we can to represent during the virtual learning model. So when teachers are talking about live instruction or partial live instruction, this is the thinking behind it. So you understand live doesn't mean the teacher is necessarily going to be standing in front of your child for 3 hours straight, because no child or adult is going to sit for 3 hours straight in front of somebody just teaching at them. So when they go in to describe these different parts, keep this in mind. So the learn part is the teacher and students coming together, whether it's the whole class or a small group or individually, to connect. And it could be through live instruction or recorded instruction, where the teacher is teaching them about a subject matter. So it might be around reading, writing, math, science, social studies, any of those types of subjects. And they will be learning about whatever it is they are going to go and do. So if they're learning about a writing lesson and they're going to write an opinion writing, the teacher would do a mini lesson about what are the elements of an opinion writing, and here's what you're going to then go do. When they get into the do part, this is them practicing with what they just learned. So it could be through guided practice. They could be working independently, writing opinion writing or a story, for example, or they could be working with a peer during that time. It's just going to depend, but they'll be working with the learning that they just did in the learning part. Then the connect portion is where the students are connecting back with the teacher to show how they did with their understanding of the material. So if it was in writing, it might be that they're reading their story to the class or sharing the story with the teacher, or it might be submitting their story on Seesaw. It's just going to depend what that subject area is and what the teacher is requiring at that time. But that's their chance for the teacher to see, oh, they understood this, or they need more instruction in this area, or the class needs to go this direction. And they can also give any clarification to the students at that time. And then this is the daily schedule. So kindergarten, no matter if we're in the hybrid model or the distance learning model, they'll still be following the same schedule every day. And school will always begin at 8:30 and they'll always end at 1:30. So now I'm going to turn it over to kindergarten to tell you what this actually looks like between the hours of 8:30 and 1:30. And then kindergarten, just let me know when you want me to switch slides.
All right, so here is kind of an overall view of our different schedules. We're going to go into much more detail in the following slides, but really the takeaway here is to see that our schedule is consistent no matter what model we are in. Kindergartners, especially kindergartners, but all students really thrive on routines, and so we really want to keep that as an integral part of our school year this year, even though things are going to be dynamic. Even though we're going into different models, we want to do our best to keep their schedule as consistent as possible. So you can see that regardless of whether we are in full distance learning mode, which is what we're starting with, or if we go into hybrid mode, or maybe even if we make it to everybody at school at the same time mode, our schedule is going to be the same throughout the day to maintain that consistency. And you can go to the next slide. So this is a screenshot of a platform called Seesaw. This is the main platform that we're going to be using in kindergarten this year. We're going to give you much more training on that in the coming weeks, don't worry. But for now, all you need to know is that each morning teachers will post a slide deck and corresponding activities on this platform called Seesaw. And all kindergarten classes will have about the same slides and seesaw activities. There might be minor changes depending on who has art that day or who has Spanish that day. But for the most part, we're trying to stay really consistent across the whole grade level. And next slide. So when your student opens up the daily slides, this is the first thing they're going to see. This is just a sample slide deck for a Monday. All days are going to be pretty similar because, again, kindergartners really thrive on those routines, so we want to keep everything consistent. Wednesdays are the only day that's going to be a little bit different because that's the day that we as teachers have all of our meetings and our professional development duties and things like that. So Wednesdays are going to have a little bit of a different schedule, and then they're also going to only have one live component in the morning. But Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday will be pretty similar to this sample slide deck that you're seeing today. And again, it's also important to note that when we transition to the hybrid model, we are going to try to follow these same schedules that we've put in place so that we just maintain that consistency. Next slide. So next in the slide deck, you're going to see a schedule for the day and a photo of all the materials that your child will need for that day. The schedule is more for you since most of our kids can't tell time at this point, but we thought it would still be helpful to include. And we also wanted to include a guide for which activities are live and which activities are partially live. So you see that little Google Meet icon that looks like a speech bubble with a video camera. Those activities are going to either be live or partially live throughout the day. Next slide. So first in our kindergarten day, we start off with what we call a family meeting. If you have other students at Star Academy, you may have heard it referred to as a class meeting or a morning meeting. We call it a family meeting because we are a classroom family. Your student's family does not need to attend this meeting. This is just for students. The term family meeting is just a branding thing. If there ever is a meeting that you, the parent, or other family members need to attend, we will definitely let you know specifically. For the most part, all of these live portions of the day are just intended for your student. So during our family meeting, which happens daily, our focus is really building relationships. Relationships are crucial to academic success in the classroom. So it might look from the outside like we're just being silly together and we're playing games, but really we're building the foundations of a successful classroom so we can learn together. Those relationships, both student-to-student relationships and teacher-to-student relationships, are super important, and we want to spend a lot of time developing those. During our family meeting, we will also do our daily calendar routine, which is a huge part of building math skills and number sense in kindergarten. And we will also do a little bit of oral phonics practice and a read aloud. And the only other thing I want to say about this slide is you'll notice that on this slide and a lot of the future slides, there's not a lot going on. This is purposeful. We didn't want to overstimulate our students or overwhelm them. And we also want to make these slides as easy to navigate independently as possible, especially since most of our students are emergent readers. So we have the time frame on there, again, mostly just for you as the parent, but then they've got that nice little picture clue to tell them what's going on, the title, and the link to get them into the video. And family meeting is an all live event, so your student will be on a live video call with their teacher and their classmates for this whole block of time. Next slide. Next in a typical day comes reading. Our reading activities are going to vary a little bit day to day. Some days we'll be working on sight words, some days we'll be working on reading comprehension. But regardless of our focus, reading lessons will be partially live. So that means that students will start the reading lesson on a video call with their teacher and their classmates. We'll do a mini lesson together like Mrs. Kaler was talking about. This is the learn portion of the Learn, Connect, Do model. And this mini lesson will probably last for about 5 to 10 minutes. The deal with kindergarten is they don't have a lot of stamina in the beginning of the year. So you're going to notice that our mini lessons are going to be shorter at the beginning of the year, and then we're going to kind of expand them as the year goes on. After that mini lesson, students will move on to an independent practice activity. And this is the do portion of the Learn, Do, Connect model. And we're still testing out the logistics a little bit, but right now the plan is to have them actually stay in the video call the whole time, even if they are changing windows to a different app. So that way they can still hear their teacher. And also they're not logging in and out like 8 times a day because they can't handle that right now. And since they will still technically be in on the video call, they'll be able to hear us give them verbal reminders like, you have 2 minutes left, or it's time to come back for the next activity. So we're really just, again, trying to make this as independent as possible for them. And you might notice that on this slide, we have the live link again, and then there's also a reminder that says add to Seesaw. So on the next slide, this is a screenshot of what their Seesaw activity that goes along with the reading lesson looks like. When they're done with their independent practice activity, they will submit it to Seesaw. And this is the Connect portion of the Learn, Do, Connect model. And again, we're going to give you lots of additional training on how to use Seesaw. But the things to know right now are that we really love Seesaw as a kindergarten team. It's just super set up for young learners. There's lots of scaffolds that are available for emergent readers. We can throw icons in there and pictures. It even lets us do voiceovers for the instructions so they don't have to be able to read. It's just a really effective platform for kindergarten, and we used this in the spring and it was really successful. So after students are done with their activity, they submit their finished work on Seesaw, and then their teacher can view it, and also other students in the class can view it, and they can comment on each other's work. So this is just, again, building that connection between students and building that classroom community. And next slide. So next, after reading, students will have a recess, just like we would in the classroom. We're not going to give your students specific exercises or games or anything like that that they should be doing during recess, because again, we're trying to make this as close to what it would be in class. So normally at school, recess is very self-directed. It's a time to eat a snack and play and get their wiggles out. So we want that to be at home just like it would be at school. But we did give them a couple suggestions and reminders like using the bathroom. Next slide. So after recess is math. And just like reading, math will be partially live. So your student will be back on a video call with their teacher and their classmates. The teacher will teach a mini lesson and then release students to go do an independent practice activity again. And again, you see that add to Seesaw reminder. So next slide. When your student is done, they will find the math Seesaw activity and they will submit their independent work. Next slide. Next in the day, we have a scheduled, what we call a brain break. It's like a stretch break or a movement break. Kids' attention spans are typically equal to their age plus 1 minute. So in kindergarten, we're working with about 5 or 6 minutes at the beginning of the year. So of course, we're going to be taking a ton of movement breaks throughout the day. They need to get those wiggles out, but it is useful for students to have a couple longer periods of movement throughout the day, like recess and lunch. So this is another one of those times. And you can see on the slide that the teacher will include a selection of dance and movement videos, and some of them might even have hidden academic content. And you'll notice that these videos are embedded in the slides presentation, so your student isn't just free searching on YouTube, going out into the world trying to find a movement video. It's still very safe and directed. Next slide. After that, we will move on to writing. And writing is another partially live activity. So students will begin on a live video call with their teacher and classmates. The teacher will teach a mini lesson, and then students will be released to complete an independent practice writing activity. And again, you see that add to Seesaw reminder. Next slide. So then this is what their writing activity would look like in Seesaw. This is where they would submit a picture of their finished writing activity. Next slide. Next, it is time for what we call centers. This is a time for your student's teacher to work with a small group of students and differentiate instruction. So work on specific learning goals with specific students. We're going to give them that targeted instruction that they need to continue to build their learning. Your student will meet with their teacher and a small group of students, probably about 6, might be 5, might be 7, 1 day a week, and this will be live. On the other days, your students will be using an app called iReady, which Mrs. Kayla referred to at the beginning. And we're going to give you more information on that, but basically the iReady program is going to give your student lessons and activities that are specifically tailored to their knowledge and their learning goals in both reading and math. So even on the days when your student isn't meeting in a small group with their teacher, they're still getting that differentiated instruction. Next slide. And next it's time for lunch, and just like recess, this time should be fairly self-guided, but again, definitely should include eating lunch and using the bathroom. And next slide. So then after lunch, it's time for what we call specials. Your student will have art with our art teacher, Mrs. Shane, one day, Spanish with Senora Quant one day, library with either Mr. Strazo or Miss Elsa one day, and Kind Kids Club with our social emotional counselor, Miss Hines, one day. And these schedules vary based on which class your student is in, but they will have all 4 of these specials throughout the course of a week. And in this example, this class has library with Mr. Strazo. Next slide. So then last in our day, we have our GLAD and our SEL block. GLAD is the way that we teach science and social studies at Star Academy. It's a set of instructional practices that uses a lot of embedded reading and writing. So it's just a really fabulous way to teach science and social studies in a very engaging and academic way. And then SEL stands for social emotional learning, which is of course a huge part of kindergarten. So some days are going to be GLAD, some days are going to be SEL, but regardless, this portion of the day will be partially live again. So students will begin on a video call with their teacher and classmates, and then they will be released to complete an independent practice activity. And again, one last time you see that Add to Seesaw button. Next slide. So they will upload their work to Seesaw. And all activities on Seesaw will be loaded at the beginning of the day, and they will stay up throughout the whole day. So if your student doesn't finish something, no big deal. They can always come back to it at the end of the day to upload their work. Next slide. So students will know that they are done for the day when they reach this final slide. And next slide. Also, they will know they are done when their Seesaw page looks like this. So Seesaw, once you submit an activity, it pulls it off of your feed. So again, a really clear way for students to know that they are done for the day. And that's a typical day of distance learning in kindergarten.
All right, so just a couple closing things before we get to questions. We know that this year, and every year actually, social emotional support and connectedness to the school are very important of our students. So we want to be very aware of this area and to make sure we're supporting our students and families in the best way possible. So for student support, we have our Kind Kids Club, which Miss Hines, our social emotional counselor, will be going into every class every week and doing some mini lessons with them around social emotional learning. So how to build good friendships, interacting with other people, if you're worried, how you can deal with those feelings. She does a really good job with that, and students really enjoy those classes. We'll also have daily class meetings, which Ms. Strazo talked about. We have daily virtual office hours for parents. You can meet with the teacher, or you can have your child meet with the teacher during those virtual office hours. We're going to have spirit weeks for the school, even virtually. School-wide mindfulness skills. Miss Shane, our art teacher, is going to be working on that area. And then Miss Hines, our social emotional counselor, has have the ability to consult with her if you need support for supporting your child, or if your child directly needs support, she is available. You just email her, and she has lots of resources and is very happy to support you and your child. For family supports, we are going to do virtual parent education nights this year throughout the school year. There will be some starting in August, and we will also it'll be a combination of live parent night where we're giving you information, maybe how you can help support your child with math at home. Some of them might be recorded. We know that we want to do some around Google Meet, so you know how to troubleshoot with your child at home, since they'll be using that. Schoology, iReady, Seesaw. We're going to definitely show you how to use these different platforms to help support your student, and then also how to support them with academics. And then also our social emotional counselor will be doing some parent nights, how you can support your child and yourself and your family. Teachers will be sending weekly emails, updates. I will be sending bi-weekly emails about the whole school. Sometimes you'll see it a little bit more often if we have a lot of stuff going on. But there will be that regular communication there. And then we're going to have opportunities for regular feedback through the teachers, through the school, and then Natomas charter-wide. So you'll be seeing those too. And then in helping prepare your child for the school year, we are recommending a couple things. One is to set up a workspace for them at your house. You'll have to figure out the best spot for them. You need to think about having a quiet space that has the least amount of distractions as possible, and a space that is a designated space, not just a roving space around the house. Students do much better when they know this is their workspace, this is what I'm supposed to do in that space. Once again, it's that knowing what to expect in that regimented like repetition. It helps build them security and understanding, and that will help build the independence of them. And then we are recommending to practice having your child wear a mask and physically distance. We know that masks are not required for kindergarten. However, they are going to be highly recommended. It is going to take all of us following the recommendations with masks, social distancing, and washing hands for when we get back on campus to be able to keep the school open. We do not want to be passing around COVID or other things, and it will go fast if we're not following these protocols. So having your child start wearing that mask around, you can see kids all the time wearing them. They can do it. Young kids are even doing it. They just need that practice, and they need the modeling. And then also practicing social distancing. What does that look like? Kids are used to being up close to people. They love to give hugs that they can't be doing during COVID with other people. So modeling for them, what does it look like, but still interacting with others. It's just going to look a little bit different this year. And then practicing washing their hands. This is something in kindergarten we usually do a lot. But we really need you to start working with them on that at home. A lot of you probably are already doing that. So we need water, we need appropriate amount of soap. We do not need the whole jar of soap. And then drying their hands afterwards. The recommendation is to have them sing the alphabet or count to around 30. So they're practicing some of those kindergarten skills, and that's about the amount of time it takes to be getting the germs off the hand. And then finally, also taking the time to start talking to your child about what this year is going to look like and what to expect. Letting them know that it's going to be different. This is not what anybody pictured, especially if you're coming into kindergarten and you didn't do TK last year. You thought this is going to be exciting. You're coming in for the first day. Well, the first day is not going to look quite like what you would have pictured, but that's okay. And just talking to your child about that and talking to them about flexibility. We're going to change at some point in the year. Hopefully we get into the hybrid model and you're going to be going to school with part of the students. This is what it's going to look like. So just preparing them, that really lowers their anxiety. And then when they get to transitions, they do very, very well with it, but they need to be set up for that. And then also the last thing is talking to them about the importance of still making friends with others. They just are going to have that social distancing and having positive interactions with others. So using those socialization skills, and that's part of where the Kind Kids Club comes into, that Ms. Hines will work on. But it's going to really take a combination of families and the school working on all of these elements to make sure we're successful and are able to keep the school open once we get into the hybrid model. So now I'm going to move into questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Mrs. Donato is going to help read off the questions. I know she's been monitoring the chat. Okay.
I just have a couple for you, Miss Kaler, directly, and then the kinder team. So parents are asking about Starscape program and the availability, what that's going to look like for families this year.
Okay, so I know Mr. Ben actually just posted something on our parent, oh, that's something I need to come back to also for kindergarten. On our parent Facebook page, he just posted something about it, so that's the most updated information. I've not been able to look at it. I do know that Starscape is really going to be prioritized for families who are first responders, and then after that, it will probably be on more of a lottery base. But it's really going to depend on the volume of people that are trying to go there. So we just have to kind of see. I believe they sent out a form trying to see how many people are interested in the service, because that will better be able to guide them of how many people we will be able to accommodate. I do know they have a cap-off number. Last I heard it was about 40, because we have to look at how many spaces we have on campus with I think it's approximately 10-to-1 ratio. So 10 students for one adult in one space, but it depends on the size of the space. So they do have, if you go to the Natomas Charter website, there is a link for our Starscape program, and that will have the most up-to-date information. But that's kind of a general overview. So prioritizing the first responders. After that, depending on how many people, it might be lottery based, and there will be a cap off number. And they are trying to do pods of students, so they're not having a ton of interaction with new people to try and keep the germs down.
So the other question, Mrs. Kaler, for families who have multiple students in different grade levels during that pickup time, I know that we had discussed our ideal is to have one parent and the child meeting with the classroom teacher, but families who have multiple, and each teacher has their own schedule. So my suggestion was that they contact the classroom teachers to see that coordination, because we don't have access to the individual teacher schedules at this time.
Correct. That's what I would say. Reach out to the teacher. You'll have to see if you can make them back to back. We are trying to keep the groups as small as possible. So if you think about it, the preference would be to bring one child and one adult at a time. Because once again, that social distancing and trying to keep germs down, we do understand if you have a couple kids, it is easier. I would say groups smaller than 5, and thinking about there's going to be a teacher, so really 4 max. And that's like a max amount of people. So yeah, but reach out directly to the teachers and they'll be able to tell you.
Okay, and I think our other ones are for our kinder team. So some of the parents have noted that had older siblings that were maybe using Seesaw last year, that it was hard for them to type or manipulate Seesaw. So they were asking if you're submitting paper, and so they will physically have paper. So can you guys talk about the supplies and the binder and how that'll look different this year than what it did last year?
Yeah, definitely. So last year, when we switched to distance, a lot of what we had to do had to be virtual, just because we didn't know that it was coming and that kids would be at home for so long. But this year, thankfully, we're able to really plan it ahead. So right now, all 4 of the kindergarten teachers are putting together binders that have all of the paper worksheets, all of the little sight word books, all of the pre-prepped art projects that your kids will need through the first 8 weeks of the school year. And, you know, we're not sure if we're going to need all of that at home or not, but we're just trying to be prepared if we do. And most of the Seesaw activities will just be them using the paper worksheets and then posting a picture of their work so that we can check it. Seesaw does allow for like video responses or like drawing on top of things on the screen. And we might use those tools a little bit here and there, but just because they are kindergarten, if we are using those tools, we're making sure that it's really accessible for the kids to do it and not having them, you know, trying to write on the iPad, because we do recognize that that's really hard for our little ones to do too.
Okay, great. So the other question, we have a lot of parents who will be multitasking, working from home and working with their students. So it is a long day, and the parents are asking for suggestions. I know Kinder has built in timers or things, and you're going to have the live link so that the parents can help their child navigate. But we did have some good questions about should parents be available really that first week to be able to walk their students through everything, or what kind of guidance would you have, or what level of independence should they expect their kindergartner to have to work through our beginning of our distance learning?
Right. We've tried to make it as user-friendly for the student themselves, but they will need some assistance at the beginning, getting some training on how to navigate. Sorry, I have a 3-year-old. Trying to navigate through those different slides. Lack, can you please take over? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I got it. So what I was just saying is just that we have, you know, as Ms. Strazo mentioned, that the slides are as simple as possible, but you know, we wish that our kindergartners were coming in knowing how to work a PowerPoint, but realistically, that's not something that they're going to know how to do yet. So really in the first week, especially, and, you know, even the second week, it is going to take some collaboration with the parents, whether that's during the school day on the live schedule, or if that's, you know, after you're done with your own work, because we recognize that, you know, that's a struggle for some families too. But it is kind of going to be a collaboration between the teachers, trying to walk them through it virtually, but also kind of depending on your kid and their ability or familiarity with technology, it is kind of going to be, you know, a collaboration there of getting them used to the slideshow. And then, you know, the longer we're doing it, the more or the easier it will be for them to do these things independently. And then I did see in that question asking about timers and things like that. We will be putting up some for them, and we will, like Ms. Strazo said, be giving verbal reminders of when it's time to, you know, come back to the meeting and move on to the next subject and things like that. Some kids work really well with timers. That's a great idea. Just having a visual there really helps a lot of students stay on track with things like this. So we'll be providing some, but ideally that might be a tool that you would want to use with your student at home too.
Okay, so for the families, Mrs. Kaler did post in the group chat. There's a link there if you did not receive the technology survey. And then Mrs. Kaler, parents are asking about the parent Facebook group and how they would join that.
That's right. I was going to mention that in the last second or couple minutes ago when I was talking. So if you go to the parent Facebook group, is a hidden group. So if you go on our Natomas Charter School Star Academy website, it's under, on the top part, it says students and families. If you click that, and I believe it's down towards the bottom, it says parent Facebook page or parent, something about the Facebook page. If you click on it, it then takes you to a Google form. The Google form, you fill it out with your Facebook page, the email address associated with your Facebook page, which if you've had your Facebook page for a long time, you might have to check the email that's associated with it. You put it in that form, and then I will take that form and I add people. And I do it right now I'll do it kind of every day. during the school year. About once a week, I'll check it. But we highly recommend you add that. There's a lot of information that goes up on there. Parents will ask questions and you can answer it. Everything ends up coming through email too, but it's a quicker way to get a response from stuff. So yeah, I can go look for it. If I can find it before we finish, I'll add it.
All right. Our kindergarten classrooms, for the parent who asked, are 24 students. So that's going to mirror what's going on in the classroom, and the teachers are familiar with navigating that many students in the virtual environment. Your individual teacher will contact you about setting up time for picking up supplies. And yes, kindergarten students will need to come to pick up supplies. They have binders, all their crayons, and all those different items. So you will need to come in to get those. There is, Mrs. Kaler and I have done many of these presentations, so I apologize if I'm repeating or if we didn't mention it. You just need to inform your child's teacher if you do not feel comfortable doing a face-to-face meeting for supplies coming into the classroom. They'll have the opportunity to do a virtual meeting and then pick up through our car loop, and they can coordinate that with you. That's through your classroom teachers. So I'm quickly, because we're almost out of time, but I want to quickly go and make sure. I was going to say Sarah, but at this grade level, that's a funny one. If any of the Sarahs or the Shannon would like to answer, what should parents do if they feel like they need that virtual hours, or is that going to be assigned, or is that something that you'll coordinate with the families?
So that is something that we've still been trying to workshop and make sure we're getting the best option for us and families. But as of now, our plan is to have that be kind of specified appointment times. So if you feel that your child needs some extra time with us, or that you would like to meet with one of us individually, then at least at this point, you could go ahead and shoot us an email. At some point, we might make a sign-up sheet or a different kind of process, and we would definitely communicate that with everyone. But it is going to be kind of as like a first come, first serve basis for appointments, in the sense that we want to make sure that the kids who might be struggling and need some extra support are definitely getting that time.
So in kindergarten, some of the families would like to know, on those days that are the 12th, 13th, and 14th, when they're doing pickups and things like that, what should the kinder students and their families be doing on those third days, or do you have a plan to communicate what they should be accomplishing at that time?
So as of now, we still have a couple ideas that we're bouncing around of what we're going to want them to do. It is going to be really low key on those first 3 days because some students still don't have access to their school materials and iPads. So just a warning, for those 3 days, your kindergarten teacher will communicate what the expectation is. But our formal schedule with the slides won't actually start until the following Monday on the 17th.
And I think I've scrolled, and I think we've answered everything either in the chat or with us reading and going through.
All right.
So I think we're good, Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And I just want to tell everybody thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight, or this evening. We hope this gave you a little bit of information about what kindergarten is going to look like and how we're trying to build in as best possible a way to make your child independent. Knowing that kindergarten is definitely going to be a little navigation of that. They're still young. But feel free, if you have questions, to email the teachers or myself, and we will be sending out a bunch more information on Friday of this week. I will be sending out an email to all families, and then the teachers will also be sending out a lot more information to you too. All right, so I'm stopping the recording, and thank you so much again for